Well, good evening and welcome to the first of our TED Talks, which have been renamed Ben Talks, as I'm Ben. I'm going to be talking today about how to use creative branding to help attract investors. This will be the first of our monthly webinars, and we're going to cover lots of things to do with marketing and some other business things that will help you with your property journey. So as you can see, we've got quite a few brands around me already. These are all companies that I'm involved in with my business partner, Richard. And we'll be talking about some of these brands in the coming months. Right, so let's get started. So branding to attract investors. I'm going to be explaining why I think it's important to have a brand when you're attracting investors, as it makes you look significantly more professional. So to give you an idea of that, this is the opening slide. It's unbranded, it's plain. And when you see that, does it make it look like I really know what I'm talking about? Because it could be anybody. You don't know who I am at all. If we do the branded version for your virtual marketing team, suddenly we look a lot more professional. And if I now say to you, I'm going to talk to you about branding to attract investors, you say, okay, well, you obviously know what you're talking about. You've got a marketing agency, you've probably got some experience and you've got a brand already yourself. That's a very quick example of how having a brand can make you look more professional. And if you're approaching investors and you're looking for their money, they're going to have to trust you. And if you don't look professional, they won't give you the time of day. So today, I'm going to go through about 6 points today. First of all, I'll do a bit of background about me. So what do I know? Why should you listen to me? Then I'm going to talk about what a brand actually is, because there's often some confusion about that. I'll then go on to explain why I think you should be a brand, and then a little bit about what type of brand you might want to be, because it will be different for each individual. And then I'll briefly give you an idea of how to put together a brief as well, so that you can go to your marketing team or your designer and get them to build a brand for you that's right for you. And then at the end, I'll do meet the team. So I'll explain how we work at your virtual marketing team, and you can see some of the people that we work with. And then at the end, we'll do a Q&A session. So can I ask you, if you've got any questions, can you put them in the Q&A box, please, rather than the chat box? It's just a bit easier to track them all then. Right, so what do I know exactly? So my career started off in advertising back in the 1990s when I worked for Saatchi & Saatchi. I was a communication strategist there, and below that is the brands that I worked on. So Carlsberg and Tetley were my main clients, and the other brands there, they do look a little bit random, but they're all actually Procter & Gamble owned brands. So I had to learn about washing powder. I had to learn about makeup. I don't know anything about makeup. And about cosmetics as well. After I left Saatchi's, I moved to Mediacom and I started to find my feet a bit more. What often happens in advertising agencies is that you end up with two industries that you become an expert in. So fairly quickly, it was obvious that for me, it was going to be finance brands and food brands. So that's two things that are very close to my heart, food and money. So at Mediacom, I worked on RBS and Virgin Money and a little bit on Aviva. And then a range of different foods. Dolmio is the one that I'm most famous for in the industry. I came up with the Wednesday Your Dolmio Day. That was my strategy that ran for 15 years. I then moved on to Starcom, the biggest agency that I worked at, much larger than Saatchi & Saatchi, but no one's actually heard of them. Where I worked on Barclays and Barclaycard, Barclay Premiership, Barclays private clients as well. So dealing with high net worth individuals. And then I moved on to UBS, the Swiss bank, again, targeting high net worth individuals who would be the type of people that you'll be approaching as investors. I also worked on Wolf Blass and Jacobs Creek Wine, Cadbury's and Maynard's. When I left the industry, I started my own business, which happened to be a coffee shop, which I grew into a small chain in the West End. There's a couple of them on the left there. And working in Westminster, I got introduced to the City of Westminster, the local authority, who were interested in encouraging entrepreneurship in Westminster. So I started working with them and running workshops, doing presentations for startups and wannabe entrepreneurs, explaining how to get up and running. So I really started to work with small businesses and a lot then, and startups. And I was running workshops for the city of Westminster, meeting lots of entrepreneurs and talking about their businesses and helping them get off the ground. I assisted with the business plans, and also I advised on marketing, branding, and pricing. So a lot of people don't think of pricing in the marketing mix, but pricing is actually part of what we would do as a marketeer. So we'll come back to this in a minute. So the two things I did was helping with business plans and helping get the marketing right for companies. So when we think of branding, most people think of a logo. So on the left, we've got the Virgin logo. This is actually not really what a brand is anymore. That's just an icon or a logo. What a brand actually is what other people, more specifically your customers, think about you as an organization. So for Virgin, the brand is about how people see Virgin, the company. So they would see it as very much Richard Branson. That's a big key part of it. He's innovative, he's fun, he does good quality, but at a fair price. And that's what the brand is what people perceive you as. So on the left, that's really a logo. The brand is what we think about Virgin, not what they say about Virgin. And they've nurtured that. So back in the day when I worked on Virgin Money, this was their core brand values. So number one was fun, number two, value for money, number three, quality. That's what people think of them. And then also innovation, competitive challenger. So they were a bit disruptive, and brilliant customer service. So that's what they see their brand of. They don't talk about a logo, they're just talking about a brand. So why is it important for you to have a brand yourself? One of these is the Bank of England, and the other one isn't. So the Bank of England has built this building here for a few reasons. One is to show that they are successful, but secondly, it's to show that they're here long-term. They've invested in themselves. They're not going out of business overnight. They know where they are. So you'd be much more comfortable putting your money in the Bank of England than you would giving it to a bloke in a dirty caravan, because you don't know where he's going to be tomorrow. So when it comes to branding, what I would always suggest is that you invest in yourself as a brand to show that you're professional. You've put money on the table. You're not disappearing overnight. You're not just talking about it, you're actually doing it, and show people that you're serious about what you're doing. And when it does come to branding, I would say one little tip I would give is different colors mean different things. So green, for example, tends to be environmentally friendly, and other colors mean different things. But if you're approaching investors, probably the best color for you to choose is probably blue. Blue is the color of authority. So it's the color of the Conservative Party, the police, Oxford University, the NHS, and lots of finance brands also use blue as a color to show that they're authoritative. So before you've even started, I would suggest you go with blue for your branding as a personal brand to take to investors. And then aside from that, you need to decide what kind of brand you are yourself. So there's different things to consider. So some brands like your virtual marketing team are very modern. So you can see our logo on the left is very modern there. Others are more traditional. So Truly Homes at the top there. They're a traditional service, and so they don't need to look quite as modern. You have to think about whether you're authoritative or if you're service-based. So if you're authoritative, you'll be telling people what you think they should do. If you're service-based, your customers will be telling you what they want you to do. And your branding can reflect that. So if you think of a brand like IBM, it's very square, it's very strong, it's very authoritative. IBM will tell you what computer you need. It won't be the other way around. You need to think about if you're upmarket, if you're a premium product, or if you're low cost. And that can be shown through a brand quite easily. So the next brand down we've got here is Garland Interiors. Gold and dark blue, very upmarket looking. It's got a traditional font and a garland around the G to make it look upmarket. So that works very well. You also need to think about if you're going to be a Me Too type brand. So are you just another one the same as everybody else, or are you disruptive? Are you doing something completely different? Because if you're, you need to look different as well. And you need to consider whether you're a quiet brand, sitting quietly in the corner, getting on with things, or if you're a loud, noisy brand that's going to get in people's faces and really show them what you're doing. Lastly, are you a secure brand? Or the opposite of that, are you exciting and risky? So if you're approaching investors, I would assume that the investor will want you to be a secure person to give their money to, as opposed to a risky person to give their money to. So you will need to make sure that your brand does look like that. Then you can go on to think about what your core values are. So we have core values for all of our companies, but for you, you've got to think about approaching an investor. What are the core things that investor will need to think about you to understand that you are worth investing in? So some of those things, they could be things like customer service. So you're going to look after your investor, you have good communications and things. You might want to demonstrate that you're financially savvy if they're giving you a significant amount of money. And lastly, that you are trustworthy as well. If people are going to give you money, you must be trustworthy. So that's a fairly obvious one. And then lastly, what do you actually do? So I meet lots of small businesses and lots of startups, and they tell me in a load of management speak what they do. I have not got a clue what they do at all. So try to be very clear in what you do. And I'll give you an example in a minute. Excuse me. So for example, this brand at the bottom, Smart Living, that could be lots of different things from the name, but with the strapline, luxury co-living and working, that gives you an idea of what the services that they offer. So when you're creating your brand, think about what you actually do and how you can get that into your brand to help people. It's a little shortcut to explain to people what you actually do. So this is my personal brand. I'm obviously Ben Reynolds. And as I was saying earlier, there's two things I do. I help plan businesses and help with business plans, should I say. And I also help with the marketing as well. So my strapline is bringing your company to market. And that can apply to both of those things, business plans and also for the marketing as well. So if you saw that brand, you would know roughly what I did. You'd have a good idea of what I did. And I use that all over the place, to be honest, and I use it consistently. So this is what my Facebook page looks like. Got the same branding. Excuse me, I've got a photograph of me and I use the same photograph of me everywhere. This is my LinkedIn page. Once again, same branding, same photograph. There's a link to your virtual marketing team. Keep it consistent everywhere. So now you want to create a brief, a brand for yourself. The first thing you really need to do is create a brief. So you've thought a bit about what your brand might stand for, if it's traditional, modern and the like. And you need to really put that down on paper and give it to whoever your designer or marketing agency are. The first thing is really, what do you actually do? So make sure you know, and you in very concisely, what it is you're going to do with the money that you take from your investor. And who are you actually trying to attract? Are you looking for high net worth individuals? Are you looking for multiple investors with smaller sums of money? Or will you be approaching investment institutions? So each of those three routes would have a slightly different brand to it. For high net worth individuals, you need to go in there and look like somebody that deals with high net worth individuals. So you will need to look really upmarket and probably quite traditional as well. If you're going to multiple investors, particularly if it's in an innovative way through crowdfunding or something, you might want to look more modern and a bit more disruptive. And if you're going to investment institutions, you just want to look very traditional because they'll trust you more easily then. And then think about what they want from you. So what would an investor, whether it's an institution or an individual, what is it they would want to know about you as a person and how you're going to build that into your brand? So think about the things that the investor will want from you. So openness, trustworthiness, good communications, whatever it might be, and then build that brand around you so that you can influence the investors before you've even really started to talk to them. And then think about your USP, your unique selling point. So that's the thing that's different about you to other people. So I would say, for me, it's the fact that I do startup business planning, and also I do the marketing as well. So those two go in hand, but not many people do both of them. So that's really my USP. So think about what it is that you offer that's different. So that's once you've got your brief, you can then take it to your agency. So I'll give you a quick introduction to our agency, your virtual marketing team, and how we go about work, basically. So as it says in the name, we're a virtual marketing team, which means that we work remotely. We don't have an office. We don't all sit together. And we haven't even met face-to-face, very many people at all. So we use tech and systems to run all of our business. So we use Trello for task management. We use Asana for project management. We have regular Zoom meetings at fixed times every week. We use Slack for quick questions. We don't use email. We avoid email. And we use WhatsApp if something's urgent. This is us on a Zoom call. Our team are based in the Philippines, and Richard and I on the top left there are based in the UK. So we coordinate everything in the Philippines. They do all the work for us, and we can offer a lower cost alternative to UK-based agency. This is the team in the Philippines on a Christmas party that we did for them last year. And they've had a great time. They've really enjoyed it. So just to recap, I've been through a bit about my background and branding and advertising. I've explained what a brand is. I've talked a bit about why you should be a brand, and then about what kind of brand you might want to be, and how you put together a brief to take to your agency. And I've given you a quick introduction to our team as well. So I talked about my personal brand. There's also my business card for your virtual marketing team, which is a different brand. Company brand's different to personal brand. However, for consistency, I still use the same professional photo across everything. Right, so if you want to know more about us, go to yourvirtualmarketingteam.co.uk and check out our newly released website. We'll now go to a Q&A session. If you've got any questions, please put them in the Q&A box, and I'll answer them as best I can. Right, okay. First question's coming in. Here we go. Right, there's a lot of you out there, so I think we might have a few questions here. I will answer maybe 3 or 4. Right, so the first one has come in, and it is, you mentioned blue. What happens if you don't like blue? Okay, that's a very sensible question. Blue is the obvious choice, but if you wanted to go for something else, there are other choices that you can make and still look serious and trustworthy. So darker colors tend to be more trustworthy. So if you will go for a dark green or a purple or something, that could also work as well. I would probably avoid lighter colors. And if you're going after high net worth individuals, a little bit of gold never goes amiss. Okay. Next question. Would you use the same brand for landlords as investors? Probably yes, depending on what you're doing. If you are looking at HMO landlords, then I would absolutely go with your personal brand. If you've set up a company, like a lettings agency or something, and you're approaching landlords to manage their properties, then I would have a company brand rather than individual brand. It does depend on what you're doing, really. Okay. And third question, how do I decide when to use personal brand and when to use company brand? That's a good question. I mean, that follows on from the previous one. A personal brand I would use if it's you as an individual. The company brand is really for when the company is doing some activity, some marketing activity. And that could be anywhere. That could be an event or wherever it might be. Okay, I'm going to take one more question. Where do you use your brand and how do you apply it? Okay, that's a very good question. Yeah. So there are a few basic places. We'll start with a personal brand. Personal brand you would use on a business card, so you could introduce yourself to investors. You would use it on letterheads if you're writing to them, so that when you send information to them via post, which will happen at some point, you can still look professional. And the last place would be as an email signature. So there's going to be some communications between you and an investor before you start signing paperwork. And that's going to be via email. So I would always use an email signature. If you wanted to go a bit further on and behave more like a company, you might start thinking about having a website and possibly some branded material to hand out to people if you're networking. And then if you're a full company, then the whole bit, you can have everything branded. Okay. If I wanted to do my branding, what will be the process? If I wanted you to do my branding, sorry, what would be the process? Well, first of all, you could contact us through the website, make an appointment to have an initial call. We would discuss with you what you're up to, what your plans are. If we can help you, we would then start talking about how you want to be perceived, what you want your brand to stand for, and get an understanding of what your business is going to be. And from that, we would put together a brief, taking into account the points I talked about earlier, being traditional versus modern and disruptive versus less risky. We would usually write the brief for you based on the conversations that we've had, which can be face-to-face or via Zoom. You would then sign off the brief to say that you've agreed with it. We'd then take it to the team and they'd start designing a brand for you. If it's a personal brand, we probably would do maybe 2, perhaps 3 versions for you to choose between, and then perhaps a revision after that. And once you've signed that off, we would then produce business card, or we would design the business card, email signature, and letterhead for you. If you then turned into a business, we can look at websites and things for you. Okay, great. That's all the questions I'm going to take for tonight. So we'll be back next month, first Tuesday of the month. And next time I will be talking to you about different marketing channels that you can use to do different things. So if you're talking to investors, that's one route and one type of marketing. If you're looking for HMO landlords, that's a different marketing route. And if you're looking for tenants, that would be a different marketing route as well. So we'll look at which channels work for which type of audiences. So thank you all for joining us. I hope I covered everything you wanted to know. If you do want to know more, do go to the website and book a call. Thank you very much.